of iThrive, and then Sami will take over.
That's a good idea.
Over to you, Sami.
Bismillah Rahman Rahim. Thank you, Khalid Saab, and Khalid Saab is chairman of PIB committee who is leading the show. And also, I'll begin with the name of Allah. Rabbish ahli sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. With this, I really welcome all the participants. I welcome all our panelists, Khalilullah Sheikh Sahab, and also Sumair Sahab, Asfar, Khurram Shahzad Sahab, for the very interesting topic that we have today around, which is the startup ecosystem in Pakistan, the challenges and the opportunities. So some rules for understanding, we all know that we have a rain today, we have a network connectivity issue. So we have Mr. Humair and Mr. Rauf. In case of any connectivity issue, they will be taking work from there, from my side with this. And we will also be having the participants can ask questions into the question room, and also we'll be having the poll which we'll be doing through the during this webinar. So I'll start with introduction of my panelists. I'm really excited to have a panelist like this in our today's webinar. I'm not sure if Ms. Jahara has joined us, but she is the first panelist. Jahara is the President Pasha. She is also founder Nest IO. Jahara is the Prime Minister's member, Prime Minister Task Force on IT and Telecom, and she is also member Punjab Board of Investment and Trade. With Jahara, we have Asfar Hussain with us. We are really delighted to have him with us. He is Director, National Incubation Center, Karachi. And also, I welcome Sumair from Canada. He is a member of the ICAP. Sumair has done tremendous achievements in his career. He was starting from an ICAP and audit background. He is really a role model for a number of chartered account members for us. He is a founder, and Sumair, if I pronounce something, please come in between. He is founder of Pathos AI. He's founder of Arium Incorporated. He's founder HiPod, and he's also mentor at the Cooperathon Accelerator Program. So welcome, Sumair. And in the end, we have Mr. Khurram Shahzad. Of course, we all know him, Khurram, very well. Khurram is member Privatization Commission. He has been the member of the Board of Investments. Khurram is also the CEO and he's a co-founder, the executive director, Base Edge Technologies Private Limited. He's President and CEO, Alpha Beta Code Solutions Private Limited. He's a member of Harvard Business Review Advisory Council, and he is also member advisory board, the Commonwealth Entrepreneurs Hub. So with this very esteemed panelist that we have with us, I'll be now asking our president, the youngest president of ICAP, actually. He's the really force and motivation behind this iThrive video that you all would have seen. And he's the one who is taking all us through this very exciting journey and very exciting time. So Khalil, I will be requesting you to take over from here. I also request one more thing with Khalil, you and panelists, that will be keeping time. So Khalil, you have almost 10 minutes to share your thoughts, your views, your vision around this topic, which is, we know, very close to you, very close to your heart. So Khalil, over to you. Once you are done, please let me know and I will take over from there. Over to you, Khalil.
Jay, thank you so much, Sami. Really humbled. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Assalamu alaikum and very good evening to all the participants. Rather good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. I'm really excited to be part of this event, actually, and my warm welcome to all of you. My gratitude to all the panelists as well, first of all, and Jahara has just joined us as well. Jahara, Sumer Saab, Asfar Saab, Furran, thank you for sparing time out of your busy schedules and to enrich our participants with your thought, with your wisdom, with your experience. So coming to this topic, as Sami rightly said, this is something close to my heart. I'm sure it is something that is important to all of us, and we all keep it very close to our heart. This is startup and entrepreneurship. It's important. Its importance I can never overemphasize. We all know that there's a strong correlation of entrepreneurship growth with economic growth and the importance of startups. We have seen some good work done by the government and some focus in this part of the world, in our country recently. We also saw some regulatory good work in that direction. I was speaking to SCCP chairman recently and congratulated him for this regulatory sandbox that they brought in, which is an excellent idea. Now, having said this, I must also admit very frankly and candidly that as a country, we have done very little in terms of providing a really conducive and enabling a startup ecosystem. And that's the reason we are probably nowhere in the list of startup countries or global top list of startup cities even. And that's the reason we have not seen yet Pakistan producing unicorns or other things other than unicorns, even very large number of even tech-based startups. And there are several reasons for that. We all know the first and the most important part I always believe is that the realization of it. As हम शेर पढ़ते हैं ना कि वाय नाकामी मताए कारवां जाता रहा, क्योंकि कारवां के दिल से एहसास ज़ियां जाता रहा. So this realization of Ehsaas-e-Ziyan, that's the key part. And what motivates me is that this realization is there. So I was having a chat with Asad Ali Shah Saab, our ex-president, a couple of days before. He's also the member of the SCCP policy board. And we spoke for a few minutes only on startup and startup ecosystem, apart from other areas. So that realization is really important. We all understand that there are several challenges in ensuring that we have the right enabling environment. And I believe that we as a nation to be blamed ourselves, right from our academia to government and the regulatory bodies. We all have not played the due role that we had to. And the good part, as I said, is that there is a realization now. In our ecosystem, as I said, that the academia has to develop and their risk-taking ability and support their graduates in taking this path. The regulators have their own due role as well. We still see that from as an example, for example, these turnover taxes, the presumptive taxes regime, the SPP regulations, and the low appetite of financial institutions to fund ideas, to do risk-based funding. I mean, there is very low appetite towards that. These are some of the examples of the issues that the startups or the emerging entities face. And it was this realization that actually, as Sami said, this generated this idea of why not we as an institute, as Institute of Chartered Accountants of Pakistan, with all the strength, institutional strength that we have, why don't we play our due role in that area? And that actually led to the discussion around and then culmination of this thought, execution of this thought into iThrive. We are uniquely positioned as an institute with a wonderful alumni across the globe, proving its mettle, working in nearly every capital of the world. And Sumer is one great example. We have our alumni in all local companies as well. And we have the leading auditors, the tax professionals, the CFOs, CEOs are members of this institute. And the infrastructure that we have across the country, it puts us in a unique position to not only house the great ideas, but also to provide youngsters with great mentorship support through the alumni that we have. So we thought this is the right time and we should venture into it. And this thought actually led to the execution of this iThrive that we have initiated recently. It's going to be more than an incubation center, a whole of entrepreneurship support platform, in fact, starting with few startups initially so that we really perform well in our pilot program and then gradually rolling it out across the country. So with this, I believe, Sami, I again warmly welcome all our panelists. We have a galaxy of great speakers. So they will enrich us and our participants with their experience, with their wisdom. And I'll be happy to contribute wherever you'd like me to as well. Thank you, Sami, and over to you.
Thank you, Khalil, for your wonderful thoughts and setting the tone of the our webinar. And also, I take the opportunity to formally welcome Ms. Jahara. Thank you very much, madam, for joining us for this webinar. Now, I would before I ask our panelists to come in, and the order of the day would be, I'll be requesting each panelist to share their thoughts, share their views around the topic for 5 minutes for each of the panelists. I know, Sumer, you have shared a presentation with us. We'll be running that presentation here, and that you will be taking on from there. And after that, we'll be formally starting the discussion, and there will be some questions around that we'll be asking each and every one of the our panelists. So we all know that Pakistan, as Khalil has also mentioned, is an economy where we have young entrepreneurs, young minds, and technology-savvy minds are coming really in, and they are also creating a lot of opportunities, waves around in the economy. At the same time, economy has a challenge. We have, as per a United Nations study, Pakistan needs at least 1.3 million jobs to be added every year, and by 2035, the number of new population working will be from 4 million to 5 million number of staff people coming in. So with this number in mind, with this I would say challenge and opportunity at the same point of time, the startups and ecosystem would play a pivotal role in the whole scheme of the themes. And also we know that the government is taking some initiative. Some provincial subjects are there. Punjab has taken a lot of initiative. The federal government has initiated a number of incubators, and also the private sector is also coming and supporting us. With this, we know that we have challenges around, which is in the policy making issue. We have the investor, the hand holding topic, which when we were earlier discussing, Sumer and Asfar, with you, the area around the expectation from this new ecosystem, and the new from the ecosystem that is coming in, a good match marry between the entrepreneurs and the investors that are coming in, the social element of our system that is coming in. Also, there are certain studies done by the Aspen network, the entrepreneurs, that says that there are 6 domains that need to be addressed around. And I'm sure I will be requesting all of the participants would be talking in different areas around, which include the course finance, the business support services, policy making, markets, human capital availability of the right capital at the right time, the infrastructure, research and development, and entrepreneurial culture. So with these domains in mind, ICAP has obviously launched, which Khalil also talked about, the ICAP initiative of the iThrive. That's a perfect matching and that perfect timing, I would say, the post-COVID scenario that is coming in, where our members are really willing and they have the energy, they need the support from ICAP, and their ICAP is there for all of them. So with this, I will not be asking our panelists to come in. I'll be requesting each panelist to share their thoughts, views for around 5 minutes each of them. I'll be taking time, and I'll be starting with Jahara with you, and then I will be requesting Mr. Asfar, and then Sumer will be coming in, and then last but not the least, of course, Khurram Shahzad will be coming into the. So, Jahara, over to you for your thoughts, your ideas around the topic that would you like to share with us. Over to you, Jahara.
Thank you so much. It's a great pleasure to be here and with some old friends and some new faces. This is a subject that is very close to my heart. The startup ecosystem is something that I have been associated with for many years, informally as Pasha president for at least the last 15 years, even before, startups were the thing. It wasn't cool to be a startup, but I could see that there were so many young people across the country who were starting companies, and especially I'm focusing on the technology space because that is my space. There were a lot of young people who were starting companies and growing them, and they were sort of operating from their homes or from their garages or from their small office spaces, which they were sharing with other people. And some of them grew out of that space, went outside Pakistan, and really made a mark for themselves. Many of them, of course, did not. And that is part of the culture of being a startup. If you cannot understand that you are likely to fail at most of the things that you will try, at least the first, second, or third time, then you are not going into it with the right mindset. It is going to happen. Failure is a part of any startup journey. And this is something that most startups need to understand. Unfortunately, in Pakistan, failure is not looked at very kindly. So it's even more difficult for a startup founder when he or she decides to start a company. Anyway, so we started, within Pasha, we started a number of initiatives where we tried to promote the startup culture. We had something called Startup Insiders, where we brought in successful entrepreneurs and had the young founders or potential founders talk to them, ask them questions about their journey, what it was like, what were the mistakes they made. This was good discourse because it gave them an idea as to what it would be like if they started a company of their own. Then we started a program called the Pasha Launchpad program, where we asked young people to come and pitch their ideas. And we had some experts from the industry who had started companies of their own, ask them specific questions so that they could look at their idea a lot more critically. And that was, I think, useful for the person who was trying to start a company. And then the top 3 winners got a small amount of money so that they could invest it in their idea and see if it went anywhere. So it was through the Pasha Launchpad program that we found a few of the youngsters actually take that idea and move it into something really scalable. And that's why about 5.5 years ago, when Plan 9 actually started in Punjab, the Punjab government started the incubator, and they were the first ones other than NUST, which had started a program within the university on incubation, but they were not truly operating it as an incubator, although they were, to be fair to them, they were the first incubator in the country. But then Plan 9 actually under Dr. Umar Saif started the program and did quite well with it. Many of us who are now part of the startup ecosystem were advisors to the Plan 9 program. And so we were able to contribute quite a bit to that program. And then the Lum Center for Entrepreneurship began Lum Center for Entrepreneurship began their incubation program a few months before we started. Now, the rationale behind starting the Nest.io, which we started in Karachi, was Karachi is a huge city with a lot of young people who are extremely bright. And we found that they had nowhere to go. There were several reasons that an incubation space was required. One, if they needed advice, where would they go? Most of the academicians did not know what entrepreneurship was. None of them had ever tried their hand at entrepreneurship. Secondly, other than their close-knit network of friends and family, they had no network, so no business network. So that was where we felt that we could connect them to a network of people, fill in the gaps in their knowledge regarding how to set up a business models, how to identify a customer, all the things that they needed to know if they wanted to start a startup of their own. Technically, many of them were good, but how to turn that idea into a business was something we had to teach them. also connecting them with mentors who had specific advice regarding the vertical that they were working on. So all these things were important. And I think the Nest.io filled that gap at a time when it was critical to provide a space where these kids could come together and exchange ideas, learn from each other, form a community of people who can help each other. Soon after that, of course, a few years later, the NIC network started all across the country with NIC Karachi and Islamabad, Lahore, Quetta, so in 5 places. And I think it was a good initiative by the government because it showed the importance and the value they placed on entrepreneurship. So right now, there are a lot of incubators now, a lot of ORICs that exist in the Office for Research and Innovation in most universities. Unfortunately, many of them are a bit rudderless because they do not know how to carry out programs. And that's where I think people like the NIC founders and ourselves can play a part by sharing our curriculum, by teaching them how to mentor, by going and actually working with them to make things better for the entire ecosystem. And that's where we are at right now. I think we will be talking about the investment landscape later on, so I won't touch on that right now.
Yeah, thank you, Jahanara. Thank you. You're spot on. Asfal, may I request you to share your thoughts for next 5 minutes, please? Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Sami Saab. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you, everyone. Good to be here. And it's very difficult to speak after Jahanara, who's a mentor of mine. So great to see the energy. Jahan has shared the landscape, the history of incubation and the startup ecosystem in Pakistan. My experience was slightly different, and I started off from the HEJ Incubation Center, which is Hussain Ibrahim Jamal Center for Chemistry, headed by Dr. Ataur Rahman. So I have this experience of a university-based incubation center, and then coming into NIC 2 years since its inception. So I'll share a bit of what I saw in the supply chain or the pipeline of startups or the businesses that usually come to the incubators. So there are big challenges, and some of those challenges have been shared by Jahanara. One is you don't find university professors doing this full time. So you'll have a professor, and he or she will be given an additional charge to run an incubator, and that's very difficult to really give time and to mentor those startups. The other challenge that universities have is the lack of the entrepreneurial mindset, and it's difficult to have their papers, their research papers, their classes, and then their academic requirements fulfilled, and at the same time working on businesses and on the startups. So, but what opportunities they have most of the public sector universities in Pakistan, including Karachi University or NED or other universities in other parts of Pakistan, they have big campuses. So when you have those budding entrepreneurs there, one of the reasons, it's not the main reason, but one of the reasons when young entrepreneurs choose incubators or co-working spaces is because of their spaces. So universities don't have this challenge. The other thing that universities have is a young human resource, and this human resource is abundant. So if a young startup probably in their 4th year starts off with their final year project, also known as FYP, and they want some new induct in their system, so they'll have some of their juniors joining in their workforce. So that's very common in any of the student-led startups when they have their juniors joining in. So that's their strength. And coming from this university mindset, I really found out that it's a huge potential. And congratulations to ICAP. They have this wonderful academia plus the professionals from the accounting and audit world working together to have this incubation center in place. Probably they'll fill the biggest gap for startups, which is having a decent finance or decent understanding of their financial matters. That will also fill the gap. So I think so. Coming back to the startup ecosystem at the NICs, what we have seen is the startups that come to us are slightly mature, and they have been doing business. They want to scale up. So our focus at NICs is more on the startups that are ready to have their investment or are at the growth stage. So what now we have started at NIC and working with others in the incubation space is to mentor young startups at the university level so that we can build on the pipeline. And then when they're slightly mature, they come to NIC and work and tweak on their ideas, and then finally going into the growth stage and getting into investment and growing their business. So so my crucial findings being in the space for the last 5 years is, if you ask me like 2 years back, do you see companies getting investment of $1 million or plus? I would not have idea. I would not give a good answer to it. But now we see the likes of Bikea, Airlift, and others getting good investment, and not only raising good money in the first rounds, but
I'm afraid you have one more minute. You have one more minute. Thank you, please.
I'll just sum. So you see a lot of potential, and at the same time, many of the spaces like have this them in more investment ready as well. So I'll sum up here that this space is growing, and great to have other players coming in. The trend that was set by the likes of Jahan Ara and other seniors in the industry, we have seen great growth in the last 2-3 years, and we'll see more incubation centers, more accelerators, more center for entrepreneurship, and more opportunity even from the government side. We can see it in the Kamyab Jawan program and other programs. So it's a buzzing space. Thank you.
Thank you as well for your thoughts and shares. And it's really, yes, yeah, the space is growing, absolutely. So with this, I will now come to take Sumair, your perspective coming from outside, sitting in Canada, having a broader, different view actually. So please, over to you.
Thank you, Sami. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. And thank you, ICAP. Thank you, Sami. Thank you, Khalil Saab, for giving me the opportunity. Now, I am a product of 20 years of corporate world, so I'm probably a slave of PowerPoint, if you would. So I have to go through one. So bear with me as I go through it. I think the initiative that has been taken by ICAP is certainly innovative. Given the fact that we as accountants have always been labeled as boring and not very creative, but I think when I look at iThrive, when I look at the work that has been put behind the idea, we are certainly proving anything but that. And I think it also, what Khalil Saab said, kind of hit something that I've read somewhere, that Henry Ford once said that if you don't think of the future, you won't have one. Right, so it's really thinking ahead, thinking forward. I want to start by telling you guys one story after hearing, from the esteemed panelists who are much more experienced, obviously, than I am in this space. But I always, when I look at the challenge of ecosystems, and I look at the challenge in general, when we look at anything to do with Pakistan, it reminds me of a story that I read, which is in 1964, a chap named Roger Bannister did something which at that point in time was considered to be humanly impossible. He ran a mile in 4 minutes, which was unheard of, right, at that point in time. But he did it, and he showed the training and the methods and the ways in which he was able to break that barrier. Now, amazingly, 46 days after he did it, there's a chap from Australia, Andy Langer, he did the same thing, right? And a year later, 3 people did the same in the same race. And since then, there have been 1,000 people who have done that, right? So the point that I'm trying to make is that while something may seem to be very difficult and challenging, and it rightly so, but certainly there are ways in which and opportunities to overcome if there is effort and there is focus, which I can see around the panel and based on what Khalil Saab said. So just as Sami said, giving a kind of a global perspective or a global lens on the ecosystems and then kind of trying to honing into what we are seeing in Pakistan. Here are the top 30 given by Startup Genome. Probably not surprising, but I think what I would like you to focus on is the fact that there are a lot of countries that are, or cities that are coming up from Asia Pacific region. In fact, 30% now of top 100 ecosystems are from Asia Pacific, and they are the fastest growing region in terms of startup growth or unicorn support. So that's something I think is an interesting insight for us to take forward as I build this out. The metrics that these guys have used, and we as accountants, obviously we have a thing for measuring things, because if you don't measure, obviously you're not able to control it. So this is the kind of framework. Sami mentioned one. There are a few others as well that are out there. But the point that is that whatever we do needs to be structured, and it has to there needs to be a way in which we are able to measure, set goals, and then measure the progress that we are making in our ecosystem. And the same organization who has put this global ranking, they have talked about ecosystem going through 4 different stages or 4 different phases. And again, I don't think I'm bringing anything new to the likes of Jahana and Khurram and Asfar, but for the benefit of others, they're going through, we go through 4 stages, or countries go through, or cities go through 4 stages of maturity, if you may. And as the maturity improves in the ecosystem, the deal size, the unicorn size, the business models, and the end-to-end ecosystem, there's been mention of universities not playing their part. I work with universities here in the US and Canada, and you're right, there is certainly a whole lot of awareness and structures that enable faster experiential learning for the students. So I think this is where this chart kind of mentions and highlights the fact that the maturity goes up in the ecosystem as it becomes more and more strengthened and stronger and more broad-based, across the country. But more importantly than that, we are in a very unique situation globally, if you think about it, because what COVID has done is that it has undone or unpacked a lot of years of work that has been put into many of these different countries around the world, right? And from my perspective, I see 4 trends that are shaping the global economy or global industry, and I'm certainly obviously related to that based on today's topic, the startup ecosystem around that. So the first is, again, no surprise that there is a tremendous amount of focus now on digitization, and it's not just digitization for the sake of digitization. It's about survival now, right? If you're not doing it, you basically won't be able to survive. And if you don't do it faster than your competition, then you're basically out of business. I mean, we are seeing left, right, and center in this part of the world. Bankruptcies, we are seeing businesses getting out of filing for Chapter 11, which is called bankruptcy filings proceedings or credit protection. We are seeing large brands, legacy brands that are going through this challenge right now. Now, most of this, obviously, as Jahana said, is led by, the solutions are led by the tech world, right? 7 out of 10 global largest companies are tech companies. So there's a tremendous amount of opportunity when it comes to this, this aspect from a global perspective. Now, startups in this part of the world and most evolved and mature ecosystem are struggling at the moment. So 4 out of 10, or about 40%, are in red zone, which means they have 3 months of cash or less runway. They're cutting costs. They are struggling with their revenues. There's demand drop and there's capital crunch. The deal sizes and the deal volumes have dropped significantly. Last year, there was about $300 billion of venture capital investments into startups in 19, and we're already seeing by August that is going to be a fraction of that happening in this year. Not to say that there is no opportunity, but at the same time, obviously investors have become a little bit more wary. The markets are changing, the people are changing, we as consumers are changing, the regulatory requirements are changing. The government of Canada, which is supposed to be one of the most conservative government when it comes to adoption of anything new, they have accelerated adoption across the board like there's no tomorrow, right? So the measures that used to exist before, that used to make it very complex for startups to function, are basically disbanding, right? And then there is this aspect of tech democratization, which I want to cover as we go along in this conversation, because that in itself is
so
where
Sumer, just 1 minute.
Perfect.
Minute with you, please. You can continue.
Thank you. Sure. Thank you. And finally is green recovery. I know Asfar talked about there's social innovation. I think there's a huge potential for Pakistan, because if you look at Canada, if you look at Europe, they're all talking about green recovery, right? Which means that there needs to be a tremendous amount of green, social innovation that provides to Pakistan, I think, a tremendous amount of unfair advantage. And finally, if we are to go that if you are to break that 4-minute mile barrier, if you may, we have to think about, I think, some of these bigger chunks. And again, you have the right people to go more detailed. You have, you have Khurram to talk about capital diversity. But I think the most important one to me is about the non-zero sum mindset that I want to close on, which is, and I firmly believe in that if we all work together, with one common goal in mind to make the ecosystem successful, rather than looking at us as what's beneficial to me, I think we're going to do much more better going forward. With that, I will pass back to you.
Thank you, Sumer. Yeah, thank you, Sumer. Wonderful. So nice. I mean, yes, very, thought-provoking, and coming into this with, I would like to request Khurram, can you please now come in and share your views around. Also, I would like you, if you can focus more around the opportunities and the investment piece of the ecosystem. Over to you, Khurram. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone. बहुत शुक्रिया आप सब लोगों का. And I've already learned a lot from the likes of Sumer, likes of Jahara. Assalamu alaikum Jahan. कैसी हैं आप, ठीक हैं? And the likes of Asfar, of course, उसका काफी ज़्यादा experience already जो है वो इस सब across incubation space. और मैं I'll take only two minutes just to highlight the potential what Pakistan offers to the world, actually, to the world of investors and all of them. देखिए 220 million की population है आपके पास, which is 6th largest in the world. 220 million. 80 million की middle class है, which as percentage of total population is largest in entire Asia. Even bigger than China's, bigger than India's, bigger than Bangladesh, you name it. Asia का कोई भी नाम ले लें आप country का, जो percentage of population है middle class, that is highest, which is around 40%. उसके साथ साथ, we are the one of the youngest populations in the entire globe. Youngest population में हमारी जो median age है, that is 22 years. अब 22 years आपके पास एक young बच्चा है, और आपके पास जो है 6th largest population है, आपके पास जो है वो middle class जो है वो growing middle class है, और middle class भी आपकी population का एक biggest portion है. 4th point क्या है जो सबसे important है, we have opportunity all across the globe, all across sectors. इसमें आपका जो basics है, जो provision है basics की, वही नहीं है आपके पास. देखें, कुछ लोग इसको weakness देखते हैं. We being on the advisory side, हम इसको opportunity देखते हैं. Be it education, be it health, be it transport, be it security, be it infrastructure, you name it. पाकिस्तान जो है वो एक construction deficit country है. इससे बड़ा जो है वो थीम क्या होगा कि पाकिस्तान में इतनी बड़ी अपॉर्चुनिटी है इस वक्त. अच्छा, हमें करना क्या है? देखें, we are blessed with a lot of resources, we are blessed with a lot of things, हम हमेशा बात करते हैं कि जी 4 सूबे हैं हमारे पास, दुनिया की हर जो है वो रिसोर्स हमारे पास है। प्रॉब्लम है कहाँ? हम प्रॉब्लम को आइडेंटिफाई करते हैं। देखें, स्टार्टअप, एक टिपिकल स्टार्टअप क्या करता है, वो प्रॉब्लम को आइडेंटिफाई करके पूरे सिस्टम को डिसरप्ट कर देता है। यही नया दौर है ना, यही नई चीज है। तो हम प्रॉब्लम को आइडेंटिफाई क्यों नहीं कर पाते? हमारी प्रॉब्लम ये है कि इट्स नॉट अबाउट रिसोर्सेज, इट्स नॉट अबाउट द अमाउंट ऑफ रिसोर्सेज वी हैव और द साइज ऑफ रिसोर्सेज वी हैव, इट्स अबाउट हाउ एफिशिएंटली वी मैनेज आवर रिसोर्सेज। ये मैटर नहीं करता कि आपके पास आज एक बच्चे के पास 1 करोड़ रुपए हैं अपने बिजनेस में लगाने के लिए। मैटर ये करता है कि वो 1 करोड़ रुपए कितना एफिशिएंटली उसको लगा के कितना पैसा उसमें से बना सकता है, कितना ज्यादा प्रॉब्लम को एड्रेस कर सकता है। तो मैं ये कहूंगा कि पोटेंशियल हमारे पास है, हमारे पास रिसोर्सेस हैं, हमारे पास वो सारे इंग्रेडिएंट्स हैं जो एक पूरी इक्वेशन बनाते हैं एक सक्सेसफुल मॉडल की, इकोनॉमिक मॉडल की, फाइनेंशियल मॉडल की, सोशल जो है वो इक्विटी की। बट प्रॉब्लम इज कि हम उसको मैनेज नहीं कर पा रहे। तो इंटेलेक्चुअल कैपेसिटी का हमारे यहाँ प्रॉब्लम है। इंटेलेक्चुअल कैपेसिटी हमें बिल्ड करनी है, और मैं बस इतना सा ही टाइम लूंगा ताकि हम आगे चलें और आगे और मजीद जो है वो कंट्रीब्यूट करें जो जो हमारे पास इस वक्त जो है वो इन्फॉर्मेशन है, ताकि हमारे जो व्यूवर्स हैं उनको फायदा हो। थैंक यू वेरी मच।
शुक्रिया खुर्रम, बहुत शुक्रिया आपका, आपने जो फॉर शेयरिंग योर थॉट्स। सो इसके साथ ही व्हेन वी आर आई विल नाउ बी बिगिनिंग फॉर्मली पैनल डिस्कशन with some question and answer with from all of you. So why not I start Khurram from you, because you are, so मैं आप जो और जो चीज मैं पूछना चाह रहा हूँ, will connect what आपने जो भी बात की, I will connecting with that. So for the startup of the ecosystem, investment is the key. I mean, we all know that investment is the key. So how you see the investments coming in particular when we see the Pakistan point of view, and the country point of view is coming from within or outside of the country, and the opportunities that Pakistan offer, because you have mentioned about the population and the strength that we see in the population that we have. So इस point of view से आप क्या देखते हैं कि क्या opportunities कमी आ रही हैं, and in particular how the investment and especially the new kids who will be thinking and coming in, so उनको क्या what you would like to advise to them seeing into the opportunity. So Khurram, over to you.
Thank you Samiullah. I would like to share a presentation with you. उसके अंदर बहुत details थोड़ी हैं, कुछ points हैं. I would like to dwell upon those points, और I think उससे हमें अंदाजा होगा कि
खुर्रम आपकी आवाज जरा स्लो आ रही है, can you please?
जी हेलो, अब ठीक है आवाज मेरी? अब मेरी आवाज ठीक है? Can you hear me now? जी। अच्छा, मैं थोड़ा सा एक आपको देखें, I've just talked about the potential we have. पोटेंशियल पे तो देखें कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है कि पाकिस्तान का पोटेंशियल जो है वो एशिया में जो है वो सबसे ज्यादा है। सबसे ज्यादा मैं जब कहता हूँ तो मेरे कहने का मतलब ये है कि आपके पास वो सारे इंग्रेडिएंट्स हैं जो एक अच्छे फ्यूचर के लिए जरूरी हैं। वो सारे इंग्रेडिएंट्स अल्लाह ने आपको दिए। द पॉइंट इज हम मैनेज कैसे करते हैं और अपने एडवांटेज पे उस रिसोर्सेज को कैसे यूटिलाइज करते हैं। अब बात हो रही है इन्वेस्टमेंट्स की। देखिए, इन्वेस्टमेंट जो है इट्स एक्चुअली अ कॉम्बिनेशन ऑफ 2-3 थिंग्स। नंबर 1 इज बिजनेस मॉडल कितना स्ट्रांग होता है। कोई भी इन्वेस्टर आता है वो सिर्फ ये देखता है कि मैं कितना पैसा इन्वेस्ट कर रहा हूँ, उसके अगेंस्ट मुझे कितना रिटर्न मिल रहा है। ये एक टिपिकल मॉडल है, रिस्क रिटर्न जिसे प्रोफाइल कहते हैं कि जी मैं अगर कोई इन्वेस्ट करने आता हूँ, किसी स्टॉक में करता हूँ, किसी कमोडिटी में करता हूँ, किसी करेंसी में डालता हूँ, या किसी भी एसेट क्लास में ऐड करता हूँ। ये स्टार्टअप्स इज नाउ बिकमिंग एन एसेट क्लास नाउ। मैं अगर ये कहता हूँ मैं स्टार्टअप्स में इन्वेस्ट करता हूँ, डिफरेंस क्या है एक टिपिकल बिजनेस में और स्टार्टअप्स में? देखिए, डिफरेंस इन माय पर्सनल ओपिनियन, हम जो है मैच्योर बिजनेस को भी जो है वो एडवाइस करते हैं, हम स्टार्टअप्स को भी हैंड होल्ड करते हैं। मेरे हिसाब से हमने एक चीज नोट की है ओवर द लास्ट 15 इयर्स, वो ये है कि बिजनेस प्रिंसिपल्स रिमेन द सेम। बिजनेस प्रिंसिपल्स रिमेन द सेम। प्रॉब्लम यहाँ आती है कि जब हम बिजनेस वर्सेस टेक्नोलॉजी, हम ये कहते हैं कि जी एक टेक्नोलॉजी जो है वो एक्चुअली बिजनेस है, टेक्नोलॉजी बिजनेस नहीं है, टेक्नोलॉजी एक इनेबलर है। तो हम जो बिजनेस मॉडल की बात करते हैं, बिजनेस मॉडल पे हमारे बच्चे ध्यान नहीं देते। ज्यादातर जो फेलियर रेट पूरी दुनिया में, वैली में भी आप देख लें, ज्यादातर जो है वो बिजनेस मॉडल पे ध्यान नहीं दिया जाता। टेक्नोलॉजी को जो है वो समझा जाता है कि टेक्नोलॉजी सेल करेगी। टेक्नोलॉजी नेवर सेल्स। आप जो मर्जी टेक्नोलॉजी बना दे, वो नेक्स्ट डे ही आपकी रेप्लिकेट हो जाएगी, वो कोई और लेकर लेगा। इसलिए पेटेंट्स आजकल जो है वो फंक्शनल नहीं है, पेटेंट्स इतने ज्यादा इफेक्टिव नहीं है। तो जितना ज्यादा देखिए गूगल जो है वो क्या है, गूगल इज ग्लोबल मोनोपोली। अब मुझे बताएं किसी कंट्री के मोनोपोली लॉज उसको कंट्रोल कर सकते हैं? आज पाकिस्तान में गूगल ऑपरेट कर रहा है, क्या कंपटीशन कमीशन ऑफ पाकिस्तान उसको किसी तरह से मैनेज कर सकता है? उसको किसी तरह से होल्ड कर सकता है? नहीं कर सकता। इट्स अ ग्लोबल मोनोपोली। ये ब्लू ओशन स्ट्रेटजी लेके चल रहा है, उसके गेम में कोई भी नहीं है, उसने डिस्टर्ब कर दिया पूरा सिस्टम। अच्छा, एक और चीज क्या होती है, एक तो बिजनेस मॉडल हमें डेवलप करना है, बच्चों को इनकलकेट करना है कि बिजनेस मॉडल पे ध्यान दें। और मैं एक आपसे प्रेजेंटेशन शेयर करता हूँ कि मेरे वो पॉइंट्स, कि वो मैं क्या कहना चाह रहा हूँ कि कौन कौन से ऐसे पॉइंट्स हैं जो कि इंपॉर्टेंट हैं, जिसकी वजह से इन्वेस्टमेंट जो है वो आती है। तो Sami, can I share my screen? Would you please allow me?
You can share, Khurram, but I think you have only 2 minutes because they will be taking other panelists also. But you can share quickly your presentation.
मैं बस अभी कर रहा हूँ, मैं कुछ पॉइंट्स बस ऐड कर रहा हूँ उसमें जो मैं कहना चाह रहा हूँ। Can you see my screen now?
It's coming. Yeah, we can see your screen. Yeah.
So I call it business basically addressing a problem. Addressing a problem is very important. बच्चा हमारा आज का जो है उसको हम ये इनकलकेट नहीं कर सकते या नहीं कर पाते समाओ कि देखो जो प्रॉब्लम है उसको एड्रेस करना है। उसके बाद जो है आजकल हमारे यहाँ ज़्यादातर, क्योंकि हमारा अर्ली स्टेज है, एक हम अभी उस साइकिल में पीछे हैं, काफ़ी इंक्यूबेशन सेंटर्स आ रहे हैं। इंक्यूबेशन सेंटर इटसेल्फ जो है उसको एक जो है और ये कह लें कि उसको फीजिबल मॉडल होना चाहिए, उसको भी प्रॉब्लम एड्रेस करनी चाहिए कि बच्चों की प्रॉब्लम क्या है, उनको इन्वेस्टर से कैसे मिलवाना है, उनको हैंड होल्ड कैसे करना है और एक सक्सेसफुल बिजनेस में उसको कन्वर्ट कैसे करना है। यू नो, एड्रेसिंग अ प्रॉब्लम इज फंडामेंटल। सेकंड इज पेपर वर्सेस ग्राउंड रियलिटी। हमारे बच्चे ये करते हैं, पेपर पे तो बहुत सारी चीजें बना लेते हैं, पावर पॉइंट चैंपियन बनते हैं, बट ग्राउंड रियलिटी का उनको नहीं पता होता कि ये जब हम मार्केट में जाएंगे, उसमें जब प्रोडक्ट में कन्वर्ट करेंगे तो उसको किस तरह से मार्केट एक्सेप्ट करेगी, क्या हम कोई चीज ऐसी कर रहे हैं जिससे प्रॉब्लम एड्रेस हो रही है। Third is, of course, business model versus technology. I already talked about it. Fourth is technology is only an enabler. Business principles जो है वो सेम रहते हैं। आप you talk about Uber, Airbnb, Google, Facebook और local आप startups देख लें जिन्होंने फंडिंग ली है, जो थोड़े कामयाब हुए हैं, एयरलिफ्ट है, बाइकिया है, दराज है, जमीन है। And another issue is हम basically वो कहते हैं ना $1 billion कंपनी बनने की बात करते हैं, क्रेजी वैल्यूएशंस की बात करते हैं, हम कंट्रीब्यूशन टू सोसाइटी नहीं देखते। हम उस चक्कर में कि आपको $1 billion एक यूनिकॉर्न बनना है, हम यूनिकॉर्न को ज़हन में बिठा के हम ये कहते हैं कि हम वैल्यूएशंस अचीव कर जाएं, हम उसके जो
Khurram, your time is almost there, so I have to ask.
Please go ahead.
Khurram, I have to take other panelists also.
Sure.
So I'll take actually the last point that you're sharing. Our success rate is 9% here. I would like Ms. Jahara to come in, and my question is, the challenges with startup industry were different. It was a few years back. At that point of time, around 1,000 startups actually were there, and only 68 were able to get the funds of maximum 500,000. So with this, but now scenario is we see the scenario is quite different. Expectations are very high from incubation centers and investors. So Ms. Jahara, do you really see that we are going in the right direction, especially with the mushroom growth of the startups that are coming in? And what Khurram has shown, only 9% is the ratio. So with this, I would like to share your views about this.
So thank you, Samillah Sahab. Khurram brought up some important points, and I think it's important to realize that we need to be optimistic about the ground realities, the kind of talent we have, the scope, the potential. And keeping that in mind, I think the startup growth has been, the ecosystem has grown. Or you can see the changes, or even over the last 5 to 6 years, you've seen the growth. We've seen certain failures, of course, which is bound to happen, but we've seen a lot of investment come in from the local ecosystem. There are now players in the local ecosystem like Laxon Investment, which has opened up a separate VC arm, and they have made investments like $2 million into Knowledge Platform, which is an education technology startup. They've also put in money into Mandi Express, which is online groceries. That's about $750,000. So large scale investments are being made now. And investors look at the potential of the startup, the potential of the founder to take that startup to scale. So you don't just come in with an idea and then hope that an investor will put in money. No, first he wants you to prove that there is potential in the idea, that you are able to take it, you have a strong team that's able to take it to the level where there will be return on investment, but eventually. So investors that invest in the startup ecosystem know that they're not going to get their money back tomorrow. They will have to be in there for the long term. So we've seen the likes of Sarmaya Kar. So Rabil has moved back from London to set up in Pakistan. There must be a reason for that. And, the Asian Development Bank has put in money. Then we have, now the likes of Gobi Ventures, who have partnered with, Ali Mukhtar to set up a fund here in order to fund local startups. So they are, okay, the numbers may not be that large, but we're getting there. And every year we see that there are more and more startups that are making the cut. Now, when we started the Nest.io 5.5 years ago, the kind of startups we used to get at that time, the large majority were fresh graduates who really had very little idea on how to take that idea and turn it into a business. Then we started seeing maturer startups coming in, people who'd been part of the industry for 3, 4, 5 years, who were now coming in with a wealth of experience and then coming up with ideas that they were taking forward. They also had a network with which to work with, and they had the confidence of investors. So now you see Chinese investors are investing in Pakistan as well in the startup ecosystem. So I think it's a positive, it's a positive thing. Things are moving forward. Yes, they could move forward much faster, but I think certain policies will have to change. And I think we will be discussing that later on. Policy framework needs to change and needs to be consistent. Otherwise, investors will be nervous.
Yeah. So, I mean, before we come to the policy, I think you have touched a very important another topic, which is around the talent. So, as far I come to you now for this the question, because NIC is phenomenal indeed in talent development. But do we see any comparative analysis how the global incubation centers are working and their talent pool and development of startup via technology and other world? Because Khurram has also mentioned about the talent. Sumer has also mentioned about the human capital. So now coming from that to you, how you see this development coming in, and what are the recommendations that are going into this direction? Asfar, over to you.
Okay, sure. So we have this comparative analysis. We look at different models around the world. To start with, most of the incubators and accelerators around the world have a curriculum. So if you look at the biggest incubator, the biggest accelerator in the world by the name of Y Combinator, they have this startup school, which is absolutely free for startups around the world. So you can just access the startup school website and have this curriculum and take the best of the speakers and best of the mentors sharing their experience, and that's absolutely free. So we do share these resources with our founders. At the same time, at NIC Karachi, we run a complete cycle of Founder Institute curriculum for 14 weeks. And that's like 20 hours of coursework, which includes on-field assignments where they have to go into this customer discovery mode of finding the customers, interviewing them, having those insights. And then our main focus is for them is to go out, find the customers, get this drill of knowing your product, is it market fit or not? And then this continues over branding, legal, their HR and onboarding, and this complete structure of making their idea into a company. So what we have, I have actually studied the models all over, and what the world is actually kind of going towards is more of a corporate accelerators and corporate incubation centers or accelerators. And in Pakistan, we are still at obviously this infancy, and and the incubation centers are at a very nascent stage still after 6 years. So what the world is doing now is rather having an R&D department and having those R&D officers, they actually collaborate with incubation centers. We have had this exercise, even the Nest.io has done it with few of the corporations around. We have done this drill at NIC as well. The world is moving towards more of a corporate startup partnership where the corporate challenges or the problems are solved by startups, and at the same time their R&D or their kind of this innovation mindset is coming from the startups. So this is happening around the world, which can be kind of we can speed it up in Pakistan. We can quickly encourage corporates to move into the startup mindset of involving these startups to work with their teams and giving them this kind of an entrepreneurial spirit around, and at the same time solve their problems. So when you see most of the incubators or the accelerators around the world, there's also a focus of making products that are more customer centric. So in Pakistan, making tech products is easy and difficult at the same time, because you can't have Me Too products and getting a good big market for it. It's very difficult to get customer traction. So we have this challenge of finding the right kind of product. So this is a challenge, and which we see that all over the world. This is now better. The incubation centers have kind of worked with corporates and solving this. And another part of the comparative analysis, if you can say, is the support of the VC culture. So I think so Furqan Saab has rightly mentioned in the comments as well. You don't find many of the Pakistani business houses coming out with their venture. Jahan has rightly mentioned the induction of Lexin in the space, but you don't find many VCs coming in, considering the number of Pakistani startups or the potential of the ecosystem overall. So in short, what I can see is what I see in incubation centers or accelerator around the world, and in Pakistan, the focus is more now corporate driven. The innovation is coming from a corporate startup partnership. There is more of an entrepreneurial thinking that is happening inside organizations. You can see Unilever with their famous accelerator by the name of Foundry, or Garage by BMW, or different other companies having their own incubation center. And finally, I would like to I have very I listened to what Khurram shared, but just one small disagreement with him, that patents around the world might not be a big money-making kind of area, but at the same time, a company like IBM makes over $1 billion by just their patents only, patent revenue. So I think so we are and we can work on this aspect as well.
Thank you. So with this, I mean, when we are talking about talent and we are talking about the success and failures, I now turn to Sumer, and I turn to the transformation story. And this transformation story is none other but yours, Sumer, from an audit and finance staff to an AI-based solution provider, and also the meeting with VCs. Do you see that there's expectations same when you are an auditor? And I'm asking this question because in particular, when our members are on the participants, and also we are talking about the iThrive. So from that perspective, how do you take us through this transformation from a pure audit to an entrepreneur like this who's talking about? Sumer, over to you.
Thanks, Sami. If I could just maybe respond a little bit to what was being discussed earlier, I think which kind of is a good, nice segue into going to be what I'm going to say, which is kind of like a rallying call for peers around the call, because a lot of the colleagues are obviously from the same profession as I am. And I think what's being talked about, the fact that the VC availability, maturity mindset certainly requires a transformation in Pakistan. And I think us being the finance guys, the CFOs, sitting and making those decisions, I think we need to be open to listening and exploring alternates to from when we think about investments. Pakistan is still ranks one of the lowest in the world when it comes to VC per capita investment. I think it's right at the bottom. So I think, and it's not that there is not enough capital available. I think it's just about diversity of that capital and availability, and repurposing the capital into the startup world. And I think Jahan and Khurram and Asfar have made an amazing case for that. Coming to your question, yes, I mean it's a big shift, right? And whenever I talk to my ex-colleagues when I was a CFO, pushing people to go out and get more business, or bring cash and bring the collectibles down and all that. Now that I'm at the forefront of doing the same thing myself, going out there trying to develop business, trying to secure investments and this and that, I always tell my ex-colleagues, I respect you a whole lot more now, because it's a different world altogether. But at the same time, I think the value systems, or as Khurram talked about, the business principles, right? So I think those that were instilled in us as being the finance professional, they've been tremendously helpful. And iThrive is a great example of that, our ability to problem solve and be creative when we have to, right? And I think that has been a great teacher, or a great enabler, if you may, in my ability to shift from first I moved from finance to business leadership roles. So I led markets, I led business units in a few markets around the world, and my last role was leading a think tank. But I mean, this transformation was not as dramatic as it could have been, just because we have this solid foundation of knowledge of finance and understanding of how things move. And I think Asfar mentioned that knowledge would be very, very important and for our startup entrepreneurs, because I mean, a lot of them have the passion, but they don't have the sense of how to go about effectively and efficiently building that vision into reality. So I think that knowledge and that experience certainly was a great help at least in my case.
Thank you so much. So with this, I will now ask Khalilullah Sheikh Saab to come in actually, and I'm also taking will be Khalil, you are with us, I know. So Khalil, I would like now you to talk about a little about this, our initiative of the iThrive. I know I'm also a member of the iThrive Incubation Committee. Khurram is also with us, Khalid Saab is with us, and of course you are leading that. So why, Khalil, you think is the right time to come to this, and also coming from this background, how you think this iThrive initiative is going to support the economy, the students and the members and the society at large? What is your vision and what is your motivation behind this iThrive initiative and taking such a challenge? So Khalil, over to you.
Thank you, Sami. And it is our collective initiative and we are all part of it. As you rightly said, a lot of hard work has been done by Khurram, yourself, Khalid Saab, an entire team on it. And it's sort of a dream come true. We've been able to roll it out in a very short span of time. From an idea to execution, it took us only a few weeks. So that actually, I mean, as Samir said, we are not as boring people as people generally feel about us, right? So now coming to this, I mean, why did we conceive and what is the motivation behind it? The first is the realization that we have all collectively have to do more about the startup and entrepreneurship ecosystem in Pakistan. That was the first realization. The second that came is as Jahan also and many other panelists said, that the optimism that there's a lot of potential, a lot of talent in our youth that needs to be channelized. And then there came this realization that there's a responsibility on us that with the institutional framework, the strength that we have, we can really play a great role. I mean, ICAP, as I said earlier in my opening remarks, that we are uniquely positioned, and if we leverage our strengths, we can really support these startups in a way that many incubation centers have not been able to. Not only that we can house them, the alumni that we have, we can mentor them, we can connect them, our connectivity with even regulators. I mean, we work with all the regulators, policymakers in this country. We are the trusted advisors and intermediary of businesses and policymakers. So we can also, through this initiative, contribute towards the improvement of the startup ecosystem in Pakistan. So that was the idea, and I will share with the participants that once we conceived it and we took it to the council, the entire council was excited, and they immediately approved the launch of that pilot and to inshallah roll it out across Pakistan sooner than later. And we also thought about it that what should we focus on? And then we said that we should start with the strength that we have. So finance, risk management, this taxation, accounting, these are the areas where we will be initially focusing on. So we are especially, as an iThrive, is a specialty, is a startup incubation center. And we also believe, and I personally, an entire council, and we all as committee believe that there is a lot that can be done. Good ideas can transform and solve several problems in this space. If we are able to improve the documentation of economy through a great idea, if we are able to enhance the tax base, financial inclusion, improve financial connectivity and financial literacy across the country, I mean, we will do a great service to this country. So not only that, I believe that we will be even supporting youngsters in their ideas, we will be greatly supporting the economy if we are able to bring in some good ideas and turn them into sustainable business models and execute them. So this is actually the thought process behind it, Sami.
Thank you, Khalil. Wonderful. I mean, for sharing your thoughts. And before Khurram, because you are part of this, I coming to you this question. I'd like you to share your opinion around, because C19 has really, as we all say, it's has prepared new normal for us. From that perspective, do you think the ecosystem that we have has been further opportunities have been created, or there are challenges more all across coming to the ecosystem in the post-COVID scenario? So I appreciate if you can again comment on the iThrive, and then obviously this the C19 impact on the ecosystem. Khurram, over to you.
Okay. Thank you, Sami, once again. iThrive, you see, it's a landmark initiative by ICAP. And as we all know, ICAP has 60 years history behind it. And, you know, मतलब दुनिया में जितने जो है ये कह लें चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट्स हैं, ICAP you know has been the godfather, of course, or you know, under our most you know, one of the youngest, not one of the youngest, in fact the youngest president we have for ICAP, जिन्होंने ये चीज जो है वो सोची, आइडिया जो है वो लेकर आए, and you know we discussed within ourselves, because आप उसका पार्ट है, मैं it's my honor कि मुझे इस काबिल जो है समझा गया ICAP ने, क्योंकि I'm the odd one out actually, you know, मैं इसका पार्ट नहीं हूँ, मैं कोई चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट नहीं हूँ, मैं एक्चुअली एक डिफरेंट बैकग्राउंड से हूँ, बट स्टिल you know ICAP ने मुझे इस काबिल समझा, मुझे ये ऑनर दिया, एंड थैंक्स टू यू खलील from bringing me on board. मैंने अपना कोशिश की है थोड़ी सी कि you know contribution हो सके, and from ICAP's perspective ये सबसे बड़ी चीज़ है, क्योंकि एक इतना बड़ा इंस्टीट्यूट जो कि एक रेगुलेटर भी है, प्लस दुनिया भर में इसके you know मेंबर्स हैं, एफिलिएट्स हैं, स्टूडेंट्स हैं, you know सुमेर हमारे साथ हैं और हमारे दूसरे मेंबर्स ऑन बोर्ड है इस वक्त, तो ये बहुत बड़ा एक लैंडमार्क इनिशिएटिव है. It's like you know repositioning ICAP from 60 years history to into something new. एक नए एरा में हम जा रहे हैं इस वक्त, और बिल्कुल it's on track with global practices के हर बड़ा इंस्टीट्यूट इस वक्त अपना इंक्यूबेशन ला रहा है, अपने बच्चों को हैंड होल्ड कर रहा है, एंड यू नो पॉजिटिव चीजें क्या क्या है. मैं आपसे एक स्लाइड शेयर करता हूँ कि ICAP का ये जो iThrive है, इसमें कुछ 5-6 एक USPs हैं इसकी, जो कि डिफरेंट, which actually you know put it differently from other incubators. ऐसा नहीं है दूसरे incubators बेहतर नहीं, हमने सबसे सीखा है. I've been at NIC, I've been with Asghar, और शाहजहां थे वहाँ पे। पूरी टीम के साथ हमने लर्न किया पिछले 3-4 सालों में। जहारा हमारी जो है बहुत सीनियर जो है वो ये कह लें कि सीनियर हमारी मेंबर है इंक्यूबेशन फ्रेटर्निटी की। तो हमने बहुत सीखा है। हम स्टार्टअप्स को रन भी कर रहे हैं, हम बड़े बिजनेस को भी साथ लेके चल रहे हैं, बट हमने लर्न बहुत किया है कि इंक्यूबेशन में एक्चुअली होता क्या, होना क्या चाहिए। हर किसी का एक डिफरेंट मॉडल है और हम इस iThrive में थोड़ा सा डिफरेंट मॉडल रखना चाह रहे हैं। आई वुड लाइक टू शेयर अ वेरी स्मॉल स्लाइड विद यू ऑल, अगर मुझे अलाउ करें।
जी प्लीज फोरम शेयर कीजिए।
समी, मैं आपसे एक शेयर जल्दी से करता हूँ। उसमें कुछ पॉइंट्स ऐसे हैं
जी जी
जो
जी
कि मैं बताना चाहता हूँ। iThrive, why
Yeah,
iThrive is different.
you can quickly take few minutes and I will go to Ms. Jahara. Yeah.
जी बिल्कुल। कैन यू सी द स्लाइड नाउ? ये मैंने शेयर किया। अच्छा, it's basically a complete ecosystem. In general, incubation is an ecosystem in itself. हमारा iThrive भी एक complete ecosystem है। You know, first point is it's a thematic incubation. It's not generic one कि आप 8-10 सेक्टर्स उठाएंगे और उसको आप इंक्यूबेट करेंगे। ये जो एक thematic incubation है, और पाकिस्तान में financial inclusion has been one of the lowest in the world. जैसे सारे indicators हमारे lowest in the world हैं कहीं ना कहीं, और ये मैं इसको देखता हूँ there is more upside than downside. Downside is limited, upside is unlimited. तो मैं इसको ये देखता हूँ यहाँ से upside बहुत ज्यादा है। तो फाइनेंस एंड अकाउंटिंग, देखिए फाइनेंस जो है ना किसी भी इकोनॉमी का बैकबोन होती है। हमारे यहाँ पाकिस्तान में भी फाइनेंशियल इंक्लूजन इज लोवेस्ट। बहुत बड़ी अपॉर्चुनिटी है कि हम फाइनेंस में, अकाउंटिंग में, गवर्नेंस में, ट्रांसपेरेंसी में, लीगल में, और यू नेम इट, इसमें बहुत बड़ा एरिया है कि हम पाकिस्तान को फाइनेंशियली स्ट्रॉन्ग कर सकते हैं थ्रू स्टार्टअप इकोसिस्टम, जिसमें हमारे वो बच्चे जो iCap और स्टूडेंट्स भी हैं, एफिलिएट्स भी हैं, मेंबर्स भी हैं, बट नॉन iCap मेंबर्स भी हैं, वो जो साथ में आके iCap के मेंबर्स के साथ मिलके एक नई चीज क्रिएट कर सकते हैं। तो फर्स्ट थिंग इज इट्स थीमेटिक इंक्यूबेशन। नंबर 1, पाकिस्तान में ये अंडर टैप पोटेंशियल है फाइनेंशियल इंक्लूजन का, इसको हम जो है एड्रेस करेंगे। सेकंड इज वर्चुअल इंक्यूबेशन। वर्चुअल इंक्यूबेशन अब आहिस्ता आहिस्ता इसका जो है वो फैशन आ रहा है, बट we actually kept this new normal in mind. प्रेसिडेंट साहब का भी अपना ये ख्याल था, हम सब ने ये एक ब्रेनस्टॉर्म किया कि हमें एक फिजिकल स्पेस तो बनानी है। देखिए न्यू नॉर्मल में फिजिकल स्पेस तो होगी, बट न्यू नॉर्मल में एक एडिशनल चीज होगी, डिजिटल स्पेस आपकी होनी चाहिए, वर्चुअल स्पेस होनी चाहिए। अच्छा, वर्चुअल स्पेस का मेरा मतलब ये जो ये बात करें जूम पे, हम जूम पे भी इंक्यूबेट कर सकते हैं, बट एक रिसोर्सफुल वेबसाइट हो, रिसोर्सफुल प्लेटफॉर्म हो, जिसमें बच्चा बैठे और अपने रूम्स में जाके काम करे, घर पे बैठ के रिलैक्स होके काम करे, उसको ऑन द गो वो काम कर सके, और उसकी ट्रेनिंग जो है वो ना रहे। इसलिए हमने वर्चुअल इंक्यूबेशन शुरू किया। इंशाल्लाह आपको देखेंगे वो इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर अभी जो है वो बन रहा है, और इंशाल्लाह आप बहुत जल्द देखेंगे कि वर्चुअल इंक्यूबेशन कैसे पाकिस्तान में काम करती है। एक वर्चुअल इंक्यूबेटर हमारा है जो पूरी दुनिया में पाकिस्तानी का है, बट हमने ये कोशिश की है कि वर्चुअल इंक्यूबेशन भी शुरू करें। थर्ड इज स्पेशलाइज्ड हैंड होल्डिंग। मैंने ऐसे स्पेशलाइज्ड हैंड होल्डिंग, आपको पता है iCap से ज्यादा बेहतर कोई इंस्टीट्यूट नहीं होगा जिसके पास चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट्स जो है जितने रोबस्ट, जितने ट्रेंड, जितने जो है वो एक टॉप प्रोसेस से गुजरे हुए हैं। मेरा नहीं ख्याल कि किसी और प्रोफेशन में इतना ज्यादा होता होगा। तो स्पेशलाइज्ड हैंड होल्डिंग जो होगी, जो iCap का अपना रिसोर्स पूल है, वो बहुत बहुत स्ट्रांग है, नॉट ओनली लोकली बट अक्रॉस द ग्लोब। पाकिस्तान से हर तरह iCap हैज बीन वन ऑफ द बेस्ट चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंसी रेगुलेटर इन द वर्ल्ड, और अब भी माशाल्लाह से बहुत बड़ा ब्रांड है, बहुत बड़ा नाम है। तो मेरे ख्याल में स्पेशलाइज्ड हैंड होल्डिंग जो है वो iCap की जो है घर में है सब कुछ, तो क्यों ना उसको कैपिटलाइज किया जाए, क्यों ना उसको जो है वो
one more minute for you please.
यस, मैं उसको पूरा कर रहा हूँ। स्ट्रॉन्ग इंडस्ट्री कोलैबोरेशन, ग्लोबल एफिलिएशन। iCap की यहाँ पे लोकल इंडस्ट्री के साथ ग्लोबल एफिलिएशंस हैं बहुत ज्यादा, यहाँ पर हैं, तो क्यों ना उनको जो है वो कोलैबोरेट करवाया जाए। बच्चों को पहले हैंड होल्ड किया जाए, उसके बाद बच्चों को इंडस्ट्री में दिया जाए, इंडस्ट्री अपने आप फंड करे, उनको यूज करे, और फिर उनको जो है चेंज लाने में मदद करे। फोर्थ इज पॉसिबल फंडिंग सपोर्ट। पॉसिबल, वैसे पॉसिबल फंडिंग सपोर्ट हम ये भी कर सकते हैं, जो हमारा प्लान है आगे जाते हुए कि मोस्ट डिजर्विंग स्टार्टअप शुड गेट फंडिंग। ऐसा नहीं हो बेचारा उसके पास पैसा नहीं है, उसके पास आइडिया अच्छा है, वो आगे जाके एक स्केल कर सकता है, तो फंडिंग के लिए फॉरम है। अगर आप मुझे थोड़ा सा और टाइम देंगे, आई विल शेयर विद यू द एंटायर फंडिंग डिटेल्स विद यू कि पाकिस्तान में फंडिंग कैसे हुई है, इंटरनेशनली फंडिंग क्या हो रही है। मुझे प्लीज लास्ट में टाइम दीजिएगा, थोड़ा सा मैं आपको एक्सप्लेन करूंगा कि पाकिस्तान में फंडिंग इन्वेस्टमेंट क्यों नहीं आती, या लोकल फंड्स क्यों नहीं करते, ज्यादा क्यों नहीं करते। हमारे 108 स्टार्टअप्स की डील्स हुई हैं, सॉरी तकरीबन 88, 85, 86 डील्स हुई हैं, और $165 मिलियन टोटल में आए, which comes with translates into $2 million a deal. इट इज अ टू लो नंबर, यू नो, टिकट साइज बहुत छोटा है हमारे, हम क्यों नहीं करते, हम ग्लोबल ब्रांड क्यों नहीं प्रोड्यूस कर पा रहे? तो ये मैं आपसे डिटेल में शेयर करूंगा इंशाल्लाह.
Sure. Khurram, I'll come back to you, but now I have to go to Ms. Jahara because I know of the time she would be, she's already committed. So, Jahara, my question is regarding that, you know, you are the, we all know that you are the member of the PM Task Force Committee and also having a number of meetings with the different government institution authorities. So do you see the mindset, the change of the mindset, or it is still the bureaucratic? Because this is something in all the studies, all the surveys that we see, the mindset of the government in particular is always a barrier. So do you see a change or still there are the same, it's going on? So would you like to comment on this? Over to you, Jahara.
So yes, thank you very much. Actually, there is a change in mindset. The fact that they are inviting us to be part of these task forces, to contribute to the discussion, to make our suggestions regarding changes in policy or in the way that government functions, that in itself is a big deal. The only thing is, will those suggestions actually bear fruit? Will they be executed? Only then can we hope that something will happen. However, if you take separate departments of the government, there have been very good signs. SECP, for instance, has recently made changes to the Companies Act, which allows private companies, startups more flexibility to raise investment. They've also allowed for ESOPs, preference shares, buybacks, etc., which was not possible before. So I think that's a very positive sign. And I think Khalil Saab already mentioned the regulatory sandbox for fintech startups, where instead of getting a license for $2 million, they are able to, without getting a license, test out their idea, work on the innovation, see if it will work before they raise investment in order to get a license. So SECP, I think, has shown that it is that the people there are listening. The chairman himself is very supportive, and he has got a good team who listens. But you know, it takes time for change to take place. They have a website, which is a very good website, but if you try and register a company, startups are still complaining that it takes a long time. It takes months, in fact, for them to get back the documentation that they require. But on the other hand, if they go physically to the SECP office, it happens very quickly. So I think that transformation will take a bit of time. State Bank has also been very, very proactive in engaging with the startup ecosystem and with the IT industry as a whole. They've made changes to their regulations recently to make it easier for small businesses to remit payments to whitelisted vendors. So they have a list of 200 vendors like Amazon, Google, Facebook. You know, there are regular payments that small companies have to make, and each time they had to get permission from the State Bank. Now that is no longer required. And I think that whitelist will grow. So hopefully it will make it easier for startups to be able to deal with the business of getting on with business instead of getting caught up in the bureaucracy. And right now, State Bank is also working on regulation to make it easier for startups to raise investment from foreign investors. Now that is still in the works. I hope it happens, because if startups are allowed to open up holdcos outside of Pakistan, then investment will be possible much more easily from outside Pakistan. Right now, also, I think State Bank is talking about regulation where, you know, to make it easier for investors to bring in money and take out money. Although there are regulations that exist, it's still difficult. So the confidence that investors don't have is partially due to the fact that they hear, oh, it was very difficult. You know, once you take in money into Pakistan, once, you know, you will not be able to take it out and stuff like that. So I think the State Bank is responding and is listening to advice, is holding talks with all sides of companies, including startups. We had a session yesterday with which included the State Bank, SECP, FBR, under the guidance of Razak Dawood from the Ministry of Commerce. So I think they are paying attention to the startup ecosystem. They do understand that if the economy is going to grow, the startups are going to play a major role. But, you know, a lot more needs to be done. a lot of government work could very easily be done by local companies in collaboration with startups, because startups, as Asfar pointed out, are working very closely with the corporate sector and allowing them, whether it's banks or other large corporations, allowing them to innovate. Ideas that startups have are sometimes very difficult for established players who've always operated in a particular way. So the startup founders can give them the ideas, can use the strong financial space that the large corporations are in to actually help them execute on on making themselves more nimble. And especially during the COVID, during COVID-19, you saw a lot of startups enabling larger companies to come online, to continue to function, whereas otherwise they wouldn't have been able to. So whereas a number of startups failed and had to close down, there were startups in the education space, in the healthcare space, and also in the e-commerce space, who were able to grow at much faster a pace and were able to help other people to come online and continue to function. So I think it's great. The one more thing that I will say in the policy space is, you cannot continue changing policies at the drop of a hat, which is where the government has to make decisions, like banning PUBG, for instance. The gaming market is huge, and if you just ban things without thinking about it, then you are affecting the lives of young people who are in that space, and Pakistan is suffering because the economy is not being able to concentrate on that market. So I think they need to have multiple stakeholders advising them on not doing things like this, because it's actually very stupid. I'm sorry, I have to be blunt, but it is. They need to think through these things before making policy changes. You can't go back and forth, because that also affects investment. The confidence that people have, if you are consistent with your policies, I think is very important for Pakistan right now.
Yeah, I think Jahan right, absolutely. And we have to be blunt and we have to be clear, and we need not to mince our words. And the way you have given message, absolutely, this is what we are looking. So now, before I come, Asfar, to you, I have a question from the audience for Jahan, actually to you. So what's your view about unlucky failure of startups? So can you briefly give us, this is coming from Zaid, and he has asked this question. So, and he's asking from you, would you like to comment on it, Jana?
What is the question? I didn't understand.
The question is, what's your view about unlucky failures of startup? Failures are, of course, unlucky. So this is your views about the failures of a startup.
So there are many reasons that startups would fail, and the sooner they fail, the better, I think. Because, multiple failures allows you to learn, and also then get on to, not be stuck in that space. Failures means that the idea that you initially came up with just didn't work. Maybe there was no market for it. Maybe you were too early. Sometimes you're too early, too innovative for the market that you're in. So just let it go on to something else, test that out. So don't look at failure as a bad thing. I look at people who have failed multiple times as really being the most innovative. And I have seen this within the startups who have been incubated and accelerated at the Nest.io. I've seen the ones who failed multiple times, then have gone on to do really amazing things. So, I would say don't be demotivated by failure.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the key, actually. Don't get demotivated, put your heads high, and try to find out the success stories that are coming in. And every success story, of course, has a lot of efforts going behind. So as far as I come to you with I link this question, how much you see the investors in incubation center based startup, and what are actually the maturity period and the expectation of the returns actually? So because as we discussed in the start, we need to connect between the startups and the investors. What are the ROI expectations and the timeline, of course? Would you like to comment, Asfar, to you?
So this is a very critical question because if we look at the ROIs, Pakistan, and I'll be blunt like Jahan, we are not patient. The investor is also not patient. They want the ROI in the next month or so. This can't be possible. You need to give those startups time to have their business models in place and get the market. So for instance, for example, before this COVID-19, we have a wonderful startup by the name of Saya Health, and it's mental health counseling online. So they had only one client, one paid client, a corporate sector company, and they were actually not making good progress. And after COVID, when everything is on Zoom, when everything is online, the company has seen a growth of almost 1,000%. That's like 10 times. So they had this belief that there's online counseling will work, and it only happened because the company and the founders, and they had this investment coming in from Bahrain, where the investor believed in the company and their model and spend on the founders and their skills and their technology, and this entire, they had this runway to have this business functioning for a few months more, and we saw this good result of them gaining good traction and eventually gaining clients. And at the same time, we then saw this amazing startup by the name of Sabak. Like Jahan mentioned, the three sectors where the health tech, the ed tech, and the e-commerce actually bloom. They actually boomed during this entire COVID era. Sabak actually was their content is now on PTV, Teleschool, and it's watched by millions. And then now they have their paid content is also taken seriously by the education providers, and now they are charging for their content. At the same time, there's another ed tech by the name of Learning Pitch. They, before the COVID time, they actually digitized the entire intermediate curriculum for Punjab board and Sindh board. And what a wonderful time for them as a company when there are no schools and there are no educational institutes which are open. They have this digital solution in place. So to be honest, when the startups, there is return on the investment that is made. We can't say a fixed number. We can't say that it is 5% or 10% or what's the industry normal. It's too early to say that, to be honest. If around, we have incubated 100 startups at NIC in the last 2 years, and 10 to 12 of them got funding. And that's not a big number, but most of them have got funding recently, and the returns might not be very good in the start, but like I have mentioned before, when the founders are giving this comfort and this belief by the investors that their returns will be materialized at a later time, you see good results. We are slightly impatient. We want a quick return. That can frankly be that can only be achieved through real estate, which is the favorite, you can say, the investing place for all the Pakistanis. Because it's not regulated. It's not like a startup which has to pay taxes and other regulatory. They have to go through other regulatory measures as well. So returns are good for all the startups that are actually innovating, that are actually disrupting the space. But we have to be more patient to get a good number that this is a fixed return, and we can. And for that matter, sorry. Yes.
Yeah, I was just saying the patience is the key, Asmar, absolutely. So I would look
and just like to add on it, I think so. The what we need to do now is, since we have now many VCs in the market, at the same time, I have this question in my mind that when we made this board at the Pakistan Stock Exchange for the SMEs to be listed, none of the companies got listed on the Pakistan Stock Exchange board. Even the requirement was actually, it was so lowered that I think that none of the startups, or for that matter, any of the private companies benefited from this policy. So I don't see that until and unless this support mechanism is improved, your difficult question of getting a good return and ROI can be answered easily, because this runway and the life of a startup needs to be is all dependent on the support that it gains
So
from
I take the same difficult question to Sumer, also to you, and also with this question, I would also like to have your view on the ICAP's iThrive initiative, of course, and how you see this will be beneficial from your perspective to the members. So over to you, Sumer. I am posing two questions, same to you. I hope you'll be able to comment on both of them, please.
Yeah, so I think I'll try to combine the two, and from at least, as we've discussed earlier, that I will try to bring more the kind of the outside in view, if you may. So I want to continue with that theme even to respond to that question. I think iThrive, what Khurram mentioned, all the things that he listed out, amazing initiative, and I think ICAP is just in such a unique position to be able to influence and activate so many different new ideas and be able to actually see them through because of your connections and networks. What I would like to add to that list that Khurram said, and at least it may be already there, but just to maybe emphasize that also have this outside in view. And when I say it from two perspectives. First, whenever I come up with a new idea, the next thing that come to my mind is that I definitely am not the only one who can think of it. I don't have the super brain. I'm not the only one in the world who can think of something. I'm sure there are 10 people who have done it already, right? So I start looking out and say, what is out there? And I think that's very, very important to see as we incubate new ideas. We look for opportunities and have an outside in view and see what is out there and where is that still that missing space, right? That's the first thing. The second thing about outside in view is that there's a huge amount of reverse innovation that is happening now, right, in the world, where new stuff is being built in markets like Pakistan, and then they're being adopted in markets like the US, right? Because if you look at the US, they're still writing checks. Cashless payment is still a very novel phenomena in the US, for example, while in Pakistan now, I think cashless payments are becoming pretty much a norm, right? So there's a huge amount of reverse innovation that is possible. And so when we look at creating the iThrive initiatives or new ideas, I would say have those two perspectives in the system, because when you think about outside investors, when you think about billion-dollar valuations, that's not going to happen when you're just creating a solution that is only solving a limited problem. The second thing from an iThrive perspective is that look at from regional diversity, right? And this is what I was talking earlier about democratizing opportunity, because like to give an example of Canada, when you look at the incubation systems of different provinces and different locations in Canada, they all focus on their regional diversity and what makes them stronger, right? What is special about their own. So for example, the maritime provinces incubate ideas and generate ideas on biotech technology or on maritime or marine technology, for example, right? So AI, very, very specific focus on that. So I think when we look at creating this iThrive and expanding it, look at the regional diversities or the specialization that are being brought from across Pakistan, and there may be different solutions that maybe we may be working on. And finally, to your the holy grail, right, question, if you may, what is the rate of return and what should investors be looking for? And I think the first thing to start from there is that we need to look at, and as Khurram said, that have a mindset change to start with, right? We should look at investing in a startup as a separate entity altogether, right? If you try to compare it to, okay, how am I going to make it in bonds? How am I going to make it in share? Or how am I going to make it in, government securities and dollars or exchange? It's not going to work this way. So we have to first frame the investment as a different category altogether. And then I think the job of the investor community, but also the ecosystem, is to help investors remove the odds, right? Because investors look at odds, right? So what am I going to get, and what's the odds of making that return, right? So I think as a community, we need to look at, or as an ecosystem, and incubators play a huge part in that. And iThrive, I think, is going to be a pivot in that, because you guys, we have that knowledge, right? To how to remove odds from investment return, right? So I think if you think about from that perspective as well, as you build these the incubation ideas, so if you can make that as part of your thinking process as well, how do we create that enabling environment, not only for the incubator but also for the investors, because ICAP has that very unique position, as we have been I think saying, to address that question. So I think if we can work towards that, I think that would be an interesting direction we can take.
Thank you, Sumer. Thank you. So I see a lot of questions coming from the audience. I think now it's time to turn to some of the questions from audience. So I take another question from Ali Raza. Isn't access to the funds the main issue in Pakistan? For example, creating a private fund is not easy. Crowdfunding is not an option. So may I ask Khurram to comment on this question, please?
This is a very valid concern, of course. Creating fund is not easy in Pakistan because बहुत सारे factors हैं which come into play. It's about, as Jahara mentioned earlier, it's about political stability. It's about consistency of policy as well. It's about the overall image as well. It's about perception as well. Create करना fund को register करवा के license ले लेना, it's not all. जब funding की बारी आती है, investor जो है overall risk मैट्रिक्स देखता है उस कंट्री का। स्टार्टअप आइसोलेशन में ऑपरेट नहीं करते, स्टार्टअप एक इकोसिस्टम का पार्ट होते हैं। इन्हीं स्टार्टअप्स को उठाएं, इन्हीं आइडियाज को उठाएं, आप वैली में ले जाएं, आप वहीं पे जाके आप उनकी वैल्यूएशंस का एक पूरा जो है शिफ्ट देखेंगे वैल्यूएशन में वर्सेस इफ दे वर इन पाकिस्तान एंड दे वर बीइंग वैल्यूड। तो इट्स एंटायर इकोसिस्टम बेसिकली दैट्स एट वर्क। तो बिल्कुल ये फर्क पड़ता है क्योंकि यहाँ पे प्राइवेट इक्विटी के मॉडल्स भी अभी तक कामयाब उस तरह से नहीं है क्योंकि पूरा इकोसिस्टम डेवलप नहीं हुआ है, फ्रॉम रेगुलेटरी एनवायरनमेंट टू सोशल टू इकोनॉमिक्स टू फाइनेंशियल, एवरीथिंग काउंट्स। आप इंडिया को देख लें, इंडिया में भी इशू है, इंडिया में भी स्टार्टअप्स आर सफरिंग फॉर द लास्ट 3 years। इंडिया में फर्स्ट जो मोदी की गवर्नमेंट थी 2016 की मैं बात कर रहा हूँ, 16 या 15 की, उस वक्त उन्होंने स्टार्टअप का एक पूरा जो है इंसेंटिव मॉडल जो है वो बनाया था एंड दैट वेरी फर्स्ट ईयर दे गॉट एन इन्वेस्टमेंट ऑफ अबाउट $5 to $7 billion। वेरी नेक्स्ट ईयर द इन्वेस्टमेंट ड्रॉप डाउन टू हार्डली $3 billion एंड उसके बाद फिर वो सस्टेन उस तरह से नहीं कर सकी। मैं एक थोड़ा सा पॉइंट और ऐड करूंगा, फेलियर शुड नॉट बी टेकन एज अ डाउनसाइड, क्योंकि फेलियर होगा और फॉर सर्टेन रीजंस फेलियर होगा। ये मॉडल इतना है, जैसे मैंने पहले बताया कि 9% की जो है वो आपकी सक्सेस रेट है। पाकिस्तान का अगर 9% का सक्सेस रेट है, वैली का 90%, वैली का भी 90% फेलियर रेट रहा है। और एज पर सर्टेन रिसर्च आपके पहले 5 साल में, इनफैक्ट पहले 2-3 साल में ही अर्ली स्टेज स्टार्टअप्स जो होते हैं वो बस्ट हो जाते हैं और उनके पास फंडिंग नहीं होती। मैं आपको बताऊँ, वैली में 25 साल तक उन्होंने अपनी फंडिंग को झोंका है, बिलियंस ऑफ डॉलर्स उन्होंने लूज किए हैं। राइट आफ्टर 25 years उन्होंने 100 times अपनी इन्वेस्टमेंट को ना सिर्फ रिकवर किया है, पूरी दुनिया को डिस्टर्ब कर दिया है। इसी एक पर्सपेक्टिव चाहिए, पूरा एक माइंडसेट चेंज चाहिए, रेगुलेटर साइड पे भी माइंडसेट चेंज चाहिए, पॉलिसी मेकर साइड पे भी माइंडसेट चेंज चाहिए, इन्वेस्टर साइड पे भी माइंडसेट चेंज चाहिए। तो मेरा पॉइंट ये है कि यहाँ फंड बनाना मुश्किल नहीं है, बट फंड को चलाना और उसके साथ साथ पूरे इकोसिस्टम के साथ अपने आप को जो है वो अलाइन करके रखना is of course a challenge, but I'm sure ये opportunity है, going forward we can address that.
Yeah, thank you, Khurram. Khalid साहब, मुझे लग रहा है कि the way the interest is there from the participants, I think we need to do one more webinar on the same topic, Khalid साहब. So with this, I ask another question, and then I will take 2 more questions.
Can I just make an observation? Jahanara had to leave at 9 o'clock. I don't know how she is with time. Jahanara, can you, or maybe she's already left.
She's already, yeah.
She's already left. Okay.
Yes, she has actually asked that she will be leaving at 9, but I think she took 10 more minutes for us. I know we are, that's why I was mentioning that I think Khalid sir, maybe sometime we need to make one more webinar. So I will take a few questions and then
I've reserved my comment on that for my closing delivery.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Khalid sir. So I take one more question. I asked is, as far if you can comment on it. This is coming from Zamad Malik. What incentives like subsidized loans, tax holidays are available in Pakistan for the startups? So as far, over to you.
तो जो common हम देख रहे हैं is the कामयाब जवान program. They had this interaction with NIC as well, and some of the startups have applied. The challenge is that when we go beyond the million or 1.5 million or 2 million, then obviously it's through the banking channels, and you have this challenges with the same commercial lending that startups or any businesses face. But still, having said that, it's a good initiative, and to start off, this is one of the initiatives that government has taken. At the same time, Ignite, which is our funding body as well, they actually give seed grants to startups, and it's not known to public that the usually disperse around 70 to 80 crore rupees an year, and Ignite funds roughly 50 to 60 seed level businesses in a year. The grant size is from 6-7 million to up to close to 30 million. So it's a very good opportunity for startups to get funding from Ignite. At the same time, and the financial side, most of you must be knowing Karan Das, but it's on established entities that actually apply for the funding, because they need 3 years of existence and other regulatory measures as well to be funded. So there are opportunities, and there are seed funds. There are now pre-seed funds also available from Ignite. They are thinking about making a pre-seed fund as well. So there are things happening. At the same time, I would like to share one more opportunity for startups, and that is through the different technological providers. So AWS is formally coming to Pakistan, and they are currently in Pakistan through different channels and through NICs and other collaborators as well. They actually help startups with the technology bit. So if you're making a technology product, they actually give you credits that are for $5,000 or $10,000, and they help you with their technology platform. Other companies are also following the suit. So startups are getting support in terms of technology as well. So yes, there are very few opportunities, but at the same time, as we see Kamyab Jawan program, which is shaping up, Ignite with their seed money, and at the same time, obviously there are 8 to 10 VCs that are very active in the market, and they are also supporting the space. So
thank you, thank you. So I asked last question. Actually, take the last question from Huzaifa, from Sumer, and then I will be asking each participant to take a minute for their concluding remarks.
I have to make one offer as well, which we discussed.
Yes, I was about to come to that. Yeah, please.
So NIC Karachi is organizing Pakistan Investor Summit. It will be an online event on the 26th, and we have different investor meetings. We call it the office hours. That will be done through the breakout sessions on Zoom. And with this opportunity, I would like to give one of the breakout session rooms to our wonderful friends from ICAP. They can use this breakout session and meet some of the startups. 30 of the startups are pitching in, so they can just come in and join the overall ecosystem and get to know what's happening in the Pakistan space. NIC and outside NIC startups are participating. So
thank you, Asfar, for this.
They can join us on.
Yeah, thank you, Asfar, for this offer. We'll take, of course, this offer gladly. Also, as I mentioned, I was last question. I'll come to you, from Huzaifa, and that I asked Sumer if you can comment. And after that, I will request each participant, each of our panelists, to give their concluding remarks, taking a minute or two before I request Khalid Saab to conclude the webinar and for his vote of thanks. So, Sumer, the question is from Huzaifa: is unicorn a myth for Pakistan environment? I know you are in a global perspective, but of course you are very well aware of the Pakistan environment. So I need you. I'm looking forward to your comment and then your concluding remarks. Sumair, over to you.
So in 2013, there were about only 4 ecosystems that had a unicorn. By 2019, there are about 80 plus ecosystems around the world who have a unicorn. So no, I don't think that it's a myth. I think it's very much a possibility for many, many, many reasons. Some of them, Khurram has already listed out. It's an amazing test market. It's a very complex market. It presents an amazing use case in itself that if you can make something successful there, it certainly has legs to be successful globally, given also the networks that we have. So that's why I'm very excited about iThrive as well, the whole connectivity aspect and its ability to test what gets built in Pakistan to test it in different environments very quickly because we have those networks around the world. So no, I don't think it is, and I think it's very much doable.
Thank you, Sumair. And with this, you have any concluding remarks, and or I move on.
No, I think that's it. That Peter Drucker once said that the best way to predict future is to create it. This is exactly what ICAP is doing, and I'm privileged to be part of this conversation. Unfortunately, I'm not very much attuned to the Pakistani ecosystem, but I do work. In fact, all my back-end development work I am doing with a startup in Pakistan because I think there is talent, and Khurram knows about it. I think there is talent. I think there is capability. The quality is probably better than many other people that I engage with. So it's been a wonderful experience. In fact, I will be reaching out to iThrive for an idea that an accounting firm has asked me here. So I'm looking forward to incubating some with one of your startups, some ideas there. And it's been great to be part of this.
Absolutely, we're already thrilled, Sumair, after hearing this. Thank you very much. So I come to Asfar for your concluding remarks, please.
So thank you everyone. Thank you Khalid Saab, Sami Saab, Humair, Khalilullah Sheikh Saab, and the entire ICAP team. And it's great to meet Sumair Saab today. Khurram is an old friend, Jahan is an old friend. So great meeting everyone. Mike, I'll take what Sumair Saab just said about the ecosystems. So if we compare closely with Indonesia, for example, and that'll be my concluding remark as well, we can see the ecosystem of Indonesia. If we compare Pakistan and Indonesia, probably Pakistan is 6-7 years behind Indonesia. And now we see a similar app like Bikeia, Gojek. It's a $1 billion company. It's a unicorn of Indonesia. Why can't our Bikeia or something or our Airlift becomes the next unicorn of Pakistan? So it's very much possible, and it might happen in the next 5 years or so. I'm very optimistic. And about iThrive, it's such a great initiative. Like I shared earlier, startups struggle with finance. Startups struggle with making cash flows, making with different books. This I discussed with Khurram as well, who's a guru in investment decisions. So this platform will give them this wonderful mentoring from the likes of Khurram and all the ICAP members. This is such a good initiative. It can really, really produce amazing results. And the focus of having it thematic, it's such a great idea. So good luck to the entire team. Good luck to all of you. And welcome to the community of incubators. Welcome to the family. Thank you.
Thank you, Asfar, for your welcome. I'm sure we are also enthusiastic. We are willing. We have motivation, and we have a drive to actually go into this and to make a sustainable incubator. That's the key behind. So with this, I ask Khurram for your concluding remarks, please.
Everyone has contributed a lot to this excellent webinar, and I've seriously learned a lot from Sumair, from Asfar, from Jahana, from you as well. तो देखें अब बहुत बड़ी अपॉर्चुनिटी है. I'd like to add few points to it. Final remarks कि हमें करना क्या चाहिए, किसको क्या रोल प्ले करना चाहिए जिससे हमारी इकोनॉमी में जो ये पोटेंशियल है ये अनलॉक हो सकता है, अनलीश हो सकता है. इनफैक्ट मैं ये बस शेयर करता हूँ कि मैं जो कहना चाह रहा हूँ, अगर ये चीज हो जाए, can you guys see the last slide?
Yes.
Basically,
Yes, we can.
The key is liquidity. The key is money. If money flows properly और money जो है वो actually resource allocation सही तरीके से हो जाए, आप यकीन करें we will transform from commodity producing economy into a knowledge and idea driven economy. You know, funds channelization is very important.
थोड़ा सा लाउड बोलिएगा, आपकी आवाज थोड़ी कम आ
जी
रही है.
See, funds channelization is very important from those pockets जो कि सिर्फ उस पैसे को रख के बैठे हैं, उसको बैंक में रख के बैठे हैं, उस पे जैसे असफर ने पहले बहुत राइटली पॉइंट आउट किया कि रियल एस्टेट पे डाल के ट्रेड के थ्रू जो है हम कुछ कमाना चाह रहे हैं. व्हाई नॉट क्रिएट सम वैल्यू? एज सुमेश सेड कि $1 बिलियन कंपनी तो हम बना, हमारे यहाँ वैल्यूएशंस हैं, हम वैल्यू क्रिएट करने पे नहीं जा रहे, हम वैल्यूएशन की तरफ जा रहे हैं ज्यादा. सो वैल्यूएशंस इज नॉट द अल्टीमेट गोल. आप वैल्यू क्रिएट करें, आपकी वैल्यूएशन खुद क्रिएट होगी. सो हमारे यहाँ टोटल वीसी की अभी साइज जो है that's hardly $250 million, which is not enough. हमारा एवरेज टिकट साइज इज $2 million. We are not global yet. हमारे यहाँ बहुत बड़ी अपॉर्चुनिटी है कि लार्ज ग्रुप्स आए, कॉर्पोरेट्स आए, they come in, they need to bridge the funding gap. अगर वो पैसा डालते हैं, फेलियर रेट 90% है, आप डालें पैसा और क्रिएट डिस्ट्रप्शन विद इन देयर ओन बिजनेस मॉडल्स. आज हम स्टील बनाते हैं, सीमेंट बनाते हैं, फर्टिलाइजर बनाते हैं, हम क्यों नहीं नॉलेज इकोनॉमी की तरफ जाते हैं? कमोडिटी पे क्यों इतना हम फोकस करते हैं? हम एग्रीकल्चर इकोनॉमी, हमारी कमोडिटी तो है हमारे पास, बट हमें नॉलेज इकोनॉमी जो है क्रिएट करनी है. एंड स्टार्टअप्स आर द ग्रेट लीवर फॉर दैट एंड द ओनली लीवर फॉर दैट. हमारी यंग पॉपुलेशन है, उन पे हमें पैसा लगाना चाहिए. बेस्ट यूज ऑफ फंड्स, एलोकेशन ऑफ रिसोर्सेज शुड बी बेस्ट, शुड बी एफिशिएंट. अल्टीमेटली आप देखेंगे हर चीज जो है हमारी बेहतर होना शुरू होगी. इवेंचुअली हमारे स्टार्टअप्स के जो फंडिंग प्रॉब्लम्स है वो हल होंगे, हम बिजनेस स्टोरीज अच्छी क्रिएट करेंगे और हम वी कैन कॉन्कर द वर्ल्ड इंशाल्लाह.
जबरदस्त खुर्रम, आपने बड़ा एब्सोल्युटली बड़ा जो आपने जिस नोट पे एंड किया है, इसी नोट पे मैं भी इस वेबिनार को क्लोज करना चाहूंगा. बिफोर आई कम टू खालिद साहब, रियली आई मीन वेरी लॉट ऑफ थॉट्स हैव बीन शेयर्ड. मैं जो भी हमारे पार्टिसिपेंट्स हैं, आई एम श्योर, क्योंकि जो भी हमें फीडबैक आ रहा है और जो क्वेश्चंस आए हैं उससे लग रहा है कि lot of learnings are there for all of us, for everyone. और अगर मैं इसको कहूँ कि जो आपने लास्ट बात की है, it's a value creation versus the valuation actually. So it's a really very important topic also. जो असफर ने भी बात की कि the space is growing, absolutely yes. And also सुबैर ने बात की कि we have a talent and we have a right ingredient actually in place. जहां ने बात की कि जी we have regulations are now easing up, improving. So I think all in all, if I see from the private sector, from the public sector, from the opportunities from you, from the population that we have, so a really promising future ahead. The key is we need to be patient. The investor need to be patient. Institutions like ICAP, which is coming up for hand-holding and giving our new talent the opportunity where they can thrive, and they are I-thrivers. They become the thrivers. And they come forward to contribute to the society, to the economy, and to the people of Pakistan. So, Khalid Sahab, with this concluding remark from my side, I come to you for your remarks, and also for the vote of thanks to the participants, for the vote of thanks to all the participating team, especially Humair, Amber. So, Khalid Sahab, over to you.
Thank you very much, Sami. Great job done. Excellent presentation. So I would like to say a very good evening and thank you to our audience for being with us today. I was personally greatly enriched from the wisdom of our brilliant panel members who are really experts, and I'm sure that audience would have also benefited from discourse. I would like to record my deepest gratitude to each of the panel members. Jahanara, who's not with us right now, but I have already conveyed, I've sent her a message. She had very kindly took time off to be with us She had some other commitment, but on my personal request, she was with us today. Asfar Hussain, who's very well known. Asfar, I've seen you for the first time, but I heard a lot about you. Great to see you, and I think you are one of the pioneers in this area, and we look upon, ICAP look upon your expertise in terms of guiding us to take our ITAF program forward. Sumer Sehani, Sumer, you are absolutely brilliant. I think you have to be with us on our iThrive program, helping us, guiding us. You came with a lot of good thoughts, with a lot of good, with clarity. You told us what exists globally. So that was very useful for us in terms of getting a feel on how we need to move forward and what the future for startup is. And since you are a fellow member of the Institute, we really feel proud that we have members like yourself who are contributing towards development in terms of bringing and creating opportunities for others. So thank you, Sumer, for being with us. Khurram, I think I said before the audience joined in that I don't know where he get all the energy from. And he's absolutely highly modest, but very deep in his thinking, and a very good human being. And the efforts that he's made in terms of putting the iThrive program in ICAP. So thank you very much, Khurram. You actually have taught us a lot of things, and we definitely, I think it's a great privilege for us that you are a part of our iThrive program, and we look forward for your guidance and for your insights in the future. Samirullah, we selected you right at the end to be our moderator. Thank you very much. You were exceptionally good. You prepared yourself very well, and the quality of the questions and the overall structure of the webinar was brilliant. So thank you very much for making this webinar a great success. This, as probably we all know, that we are having a series of webinars, and these webinars are taking place every fortnightly. This was the ninth serial of a series of webinars being hosted by the Professional Accountants in Business Committee of ICAP. We are doing it in collaboration with our regional committees. We have got 2 regional committees in the North and South, and we are grateful for their support and for their encouragement. At ICAP, we have a highly dedicated team of volunteers from the PIB committee, duly supported by ICAP staff who have been organizing these webinars. This webinar was a brainchild of a very committed PIB committee member, Mr. Mohammed Humair, who does a lot of work in the backdrop, but he never comes forward. So thank you, Humair. I think we should have the benefit of seeing your face. We know that you are there. So thank you very much for all your support and for all the good work to get the panelists in to prepare for and working with the team to make this happen. Humair was ably supported by Mr. Rauf Jan. Sumer, you know him. He is also highly energetic. He was leading your chapter in Canada. And we are very fortunate that he is part of our team here. Thank you, Rauf. I hope you'll all open up your screens so that the audience can see you and you see the face behind the work. Then we have Fuad Aftab, who's always willing and to come forward and provide support. Khalid Noor with all his brilliant comments and his inputs, Murtaza Feroz, Anwar, Imran Hafiz, Adnan Usmani, Arsalan Rabbani, and Shanawaz Abro. Without them, our webinars are not possible. And I think all my thank yous to them to bring these webinars and to make them a successful story. Let me tell you that after these webinars, we publish post-webinar papers. Now that is basically putting together what we had discussed in the webinar and the questions and answer sessions that we have. We also use that paper as a forum to address questions which could not be responded during the webinar, because there is always a lot of interest of our members, and really we don't want to disappoint them. So we will be bothering you again with the questions which could not be answered during the webinar. And I'm pleased to report that the papers that are being produced, they are now part of the knowledge gateway of IFAC. So all these papers that are being produced are now part of IFAC knowledge gateway and are being distributed. This is excellent branding for ICAP. And I like to record my deepest appreciation to Amber, who does great work, and she puts everything together. She gets them edited by the members, which is finally produced, and excellent documents which we have produced and which are part of our library on the website. We at ICAP are extremely excited about iThrive initiative, and we look forward to its successful results. Our today's webinar on startup ecosystem in Pakistan is actually dedicated to ICAP iThrive initiative, and basically startups in general. We feel that, and I think Khurram put it very aptly, that what do you need? You need people, and you need energy, and you need young blood to be able to take this startup forward, initiative, motivation. And you have a mean age of 22 and a population of 220 million. I mean, this can turn around Pakistan. And this is really opportunity that we need to take on hand in terms of giving opportunities to others to make Pakistan a success story. We already have hosted 8 webinars so far, and this was the 9th, as I said earlier. Earlier webinars were initially on more broader topics of economy, business transformation, organizational resilience, and those are more driven towards COVID. And we started these series recognizing that there was something that we all need to learn, and we need to learn from each other as to how we survive the COVID. But then we thought that we should take these forward in terms of covering specific business segments and new initiatives. So far we have covered various business sectors, including oil and gas, healthcare and pharmaceutical, financial services, the power sector, and our future fortnightly webinars would be on, our next webinar would be on FMCGs, and then the following that we have OMCs, refineries, and then textile, cement, auto, and other industries. And I think we'll take that opportunity to be able to look at startups in those business segments as well, because we feel that that's the future. Briefly about ICAP, the Professional Accountant Business Committee of ICAP. This committee is to serve our membership working in the business industry, which actually is around 80% of our total membership. The basic idea is to create a platform for the continuous training and development. And we have taken a number of initiatives due to paucity of time. I would not like to go through them, but briefly, we have an annual CFO conference, the National Finance Olympiad, and we have various programs such as mentorship and other programs that are being worked on right now. And these are all voluntary work done by the members. To conclude, I would like to thank our president, Mr. Khalilullah Sheikh, and all the council members for their guidance, support, and encouragement. May Allah bless you all and keep you safe and healthy. Good night and Allah Hafiz. Pakistan Zindabad, Pakistan Paindabad. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thanks.